Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we finally have from Swans Birthing. I'm starting to get the uneasy impression that Swans are falling into a holding pattern. Hell, given the finality that seemed evident with The Beggar in 2023, could you blame them? Michael Gira seemed certain that he was reaching his end and was using that project to churn through the wave of emotions he was feeling, across a project that seemed to deliberately reference a lot of Swans' albums past. And yet with this project, Birthing, it seems like they're going back to that well yet again with something reflecting the cycle of life and death, maybe a rebirth in this moment, although given similar implacable weight to themes and the perspective of To Be Kind, perhaps it might be best to skirt a comparison to that classic, because this probably wouldn't measure up. But hey, it's still a Swans album, I wanted to give it a proper chance, and yeah, truth be told, I really wish I was more impressed with this than I am, mostly because it feels shockingly predictable in terms of what a Swans album could be. And I want to start with the content because, truth be told, this is where I feel like there was the most opportunities to expand upon that recursive idea at the album's core that I don't think they really get there. Life, death, rebirth, regeneration, those who have aged that come to hate and devour the youth because they recognize what in themselves they've lost. Where while there are some female vocals, Michael Gira takes upon both male and female role as parent, where they are a primal force aware of the danger in the world compared to the child, but they alone can stand against everything, and isn't that a little terrifying in and of itself? Now, for example, I Am a Tower, for all of its portentous drones and yearning flutters, it's probably the strongest song here. It's also very much rooted in distinct political references, not just the current POS-in-chief down south, but also to his former mentor Roy Cohn and to Richard Nixon, where Michael Gira has described the song as being inspired by a nightmare of them having a threesome. I need to read and visualize that, now it's your turn. But while it does kinda cheapen the primal cosmic scope of Swans to be directly referencing modern politics, I mean, how can it not? In art, everything that administration touches, it just cheapens. There is something potent about that single-minded belligerence ultimately being reduced to a pitiful form by the end of a nearly 20-minute song. But once you have that leading into the title track to get that birthing moment, you get this increased emphasis on the juxtaposition between lust and love, not just in the imagery pointing at female sex organs, but also in their usage. Lust is profane, while love can bring forth life. Even the world that the screaming infant might behold is cruel, but the circle might now be complete, leaving impotent rage, where of course you get the savage and obvious imagery of Saturn eating his son, but yet it's not enough. The fear remains, and the cannibalistic moment falls away into stark contemplation, as that infant still yearns and loves in a world that he or she can't quite understand. And the parent confronts one's mortality again, which is where this album returns to something a bit more grounded on Rope Away, as Gira reflects on friends and family and fellow artists who have passed, what their work has left behind, and we see him look at that ineffable path in which we almost climb that rope and vanish into whatever comes next. And, okay, look, this can all be powerful, and in the context of the now presumed trilogy of leaving meaning in The Beggar, it makes sense in the confrontation of age and death, maybe something close to acceptance with new life in its wake. But let's be real, Swans has hit similar notes before, and compared to their best, I'm just not impressed by the writing. Normally they strike this primal, challenging note, and this just feels a little obvious, and how they would approach this recursive thematic arc, like I kinda could predict where they were going. Now granted, this is where the execution and the sound matters, and if there's an area where Swans are getting a little too in love with the intentional melodic echo, rather than paying off some of their crescendos or drones, I think it's here. Not helped by how many of these pieces, if they don't overstay their welcome, because it's Swans, you expect length, they often feel a little melodically short or bereft of a stronger build to pay it all off. Or maybe it's just the feel that while the bass and drum interplay on the midsection of The Healers breaks into choral atmospherics, what sounds like heraldry on the title track, or some truly moving tremolo guitar work on Rope Away, those were all impressive. You also get the abrupt ending cutting off any build on Red Yellow, or that spooling attempt at noise on The Merge that opens up the track and just sounds like a total misfire to me. It's not challengingly harsh or texturally interesting so much as this messy bleeping spiral stuttering across the mix, where the groove and the jazzy flourishes that follow around it, they're potent, just not enough to save it. In short, Look, it's a little frustrating to discuss this project because Michael Gira has said this is the last of this era of this super loud Swans albums. And it's clearly trying to make a thematic point while doing so. I can absolutely respect the progression. But if you're a longtime Swans fan and you aren't immediately enamored with all the melodic callbacks, it just doesn't feel that special to me. It's good, absolutely. Michael Gira's production and master of the slow building progressions, it's second to none. And I want to give this every benefit of the doubt. For diehard fans, I know why it works so well. But those diehard fans should also recognize they've done these sounds better, and in terms of content, it's nowhere near as viscerally compelling as they've been in the past. And that's not coming from someone who expects another Children of God, or White Light, or Great Annihilator, or To Be Kind. But I also gotta hold Swans to the standards which they themselves set, and while it's a fitting conclusion to the arc, I'm happy to hear any material while they remain active. I don't know, I'm more curious about the result of any rebirth than hearing the execution. Yes, the pun was intended. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to like and subscribe, I'd be extremely grateful. Leave comments down there below, because I know I'm going against some of the critical consensus, especially on certain user-driven rating sites, that I'm a little bit more negative on this. But then again, I also went to go re-listen to a bunch of Swans' albums, and I just don't find this as impressive. Yeah, I like The Beggar more than this. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in helping support the channel, get albums on my schedule when it reopens in July, or hell, just yell at me on my Discord, link to YouTube memberships and Patreon are right over there. Once again, don't feel obligated. Tough times, I understand, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.